Now, today I had a incredibly cheery ethics lesson where we basically watched a nearly hour-long documentary on the Chechnya Moscow siege in 2002, which, if you don't know, about 40-ish Chechen rebels raided a theatre in Moscow, hence the name, took 850 people hostage, demanded that if the Russian troops did not withdraw from Chechnya, they would detonate a series of bombs, killing everyone within. Ultimately, Chechnya was not freed. This was 18 years ago, and the Russians still occupy that part of the world. The bombs were never detonated. The Russians decided to gas out the theatre, but 4 people were killed by the Chechnyan gunmen. 4 people were shot dead, but a further 200 died from the attempted rescue. The gas killed the majority of the people, and we were watching this from a utilitarian point of view, just trying to see if the actions taken are justifiable, seeing as how 600 survived, yet 200 died. But I just want to look at it in a different way, and to start this off with a disclaimer, I am neither anti-Russia and pro-Chechnyan. I'm not that. In the exact same way, I'm not anti-Israel and pro-Palestine, or anti-Britain and pro-Ireland. I'm just not like that. I can't side morally with a country. I don't do that myself. I just want to see the systems within and sort of the disparities, and I will align myself, which may be more sympathetic with one side of the country based on certain factors. I'm not a sympathiser for any one country as a country, basically. And what I want to point out is 200 people died, yes, and that is a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. But of those 200, 99% of them, nearly, died at the hands of the Russian incompetence, not the gunmen. So firstly, the deaths were not the gunmen's fault when they choked on the rescue gas. Secondly, sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself, 200 dead. In Chechnya, there's been a reported as many as 50,000 Russians have been 50,000 Chechnyans have been killed by the Russians since 1990. Unconfirmed, yes, but proper news of that would never get out. The number could be much, much higher. And there are confirmed stories, and we know that this is happening, and we know that Russia has unfairly taken Chechnya and is holding it in a dictatorship and has not let go. Chechnyan terrorism is a huge issue, but is it really terrorism when they can't be labelled as the victim because they've been radicalized and militarized by the Russian invaders? The Russian invaders being there are the only reason any subsequent crime has happened. The Russian intrusion has caused every terrorist attack. They have been a response to this invasion. And yes, no one who is involved or family with the people at the theatre would say the Chechnyans were right in what they did. But do you think any Chechnyan would say the Russian army was right in what they did? The Russian army choose their decisions. They go in with what they do, and they are a decided force. They work almost as a corporation. The people of Chechnya are just natives to a land that was invaded and violated and had hundreds nearly and thousands brutally murdered. There was, I can't think of the name, but it was a massacre where, without reason, Russian armed forces gunned down 60 people in the street for nothing. And that is one instance of something that has been going on in an unconfirmed war we don't even know the extent of for 20 years. Yet people want to sit here and say Chechnyans are the bad guys, Chechnyans are the villains and the terrorists, when really they have been put through so much, and everything they've done is a response. If this was in a war, if it was an actually declared war and these were battled, no one would bat an eyelid. The Germans killed hundreds of thousands, yeah, in both world wars, and the British and the Allied forces killed hundreds of thousands in the world wars. But because that was in a war, it's seen as justifiable. But because this was never a determined war, and we never confirmed that both sides were fighting, it seems even worse. But if we're going to acknowledge, realistically, the Chechnyans weren't fighting in the beginning. This was an attack and infiltration from the Russians. So that makes it even worse than it being two forces fighting each other when it's one force oppressing another. This was just them making their stand. You can't label them as terrorists. There's a famous Irish phrase, "You dare to call me a terrorist while you look down your gun," which really fits this as well, because especially the same in Ireland, the IRA was only a response to English invasion. And it's not justification, it's more so clarification, and also you less want to side with these people. You don't want to side with the Chechnyans or the IRA or Palestinian forces, but you want to take away support from the Russian army, the British Empire, from the Israeli Zionist government. Because it's not siding, it's settling morally. We can't have a world that is moral when these things go on and we only focus the negative energy on these people who realistically are just making a stand, and it's the only option they have at what they think is right. The Chechen rebels grew up in a war zone, watching every member of their family systematically be slaughtered by the Russian government. Do you really think they would stand for democracy in a situation like that? There's no way, yet they're the only villains in our eyes when we label that a terrorist attack, when realistically post-Tsar Russia has been the vastest, expansive terrorist group we've ever seen, and there's no denying that. The USSR, Russia, the Kremlin, everything, have they not incited terror in millions of people? Have they not done worse than any single terrorist attack have done? And that's not me being anti-Russian, that's me stating fact. Have they not done these things? And they have. And have they not done these things directly to Chechnyans? They have. So why can we call Chechnyans the villains and not even bat an eye at what the Russians do? It's not siding, it's just not logical to be like this. So think again about it, and really, before you make that judgment on one decision, look into what's caused it, because the Russians are responsible for every Chechen terrorist attack.